Welcome to Throw Off the Lines, the podcast where we navigate life's changes, explore new horizons, and embrace the journey. I'm your host, Stephanie York, an executive coach with a passion for charting new courses on the water and in life. Ready for some total change? Let's dive in. Hi there, and welcome to my episode about women and anger. I want to cover one of the types of ways that anger can show up. So this is called the stewer pattern. If you are somebody who gets angry and stews in it, today's really short episode, it's not even an episode, today's little short thing is going to be about the stewer and kind of how they turn that anger inward. And it's someone who is kind of letting it simmer until it shows up as stress or headaches or sleepless nights or even depression. I found myself to be definitely a stewer, and it would go on for a long time, and it would manifest in my body in all kinds of ways, including like my knee would go out, my lower back. And when you've got people who have a lot of stress, and on top of that they've got anger about things, maybe they're so stressed they're angry, they're so stressed, maybe they're handling a full-time job and the kids running around and they're cooking, they're doing a lot more of the work around the house, and they don't tell anybody because maybe they grew up being the only one who cared about themselves. There's a lot of women in our age group, 45 to 65, 75, 80, who grew up being the caretaker to everybody, and they didn't take care of themselves. And those people often end up being the stewer. And they end up at a stage in their life where I am, and they didn't live their life the way they wanted to. And I'm finding a lot of them are deeply depressed and don't know where to start. They never lived their lives for themselves. Their kids have moved out. Some of them no longer have a spouse for whatever reason, and they don't have habits or hobbies or friends. They have put up with so much their whole lives, and they realize, sadly, that they didn't live their life for themselves, and here they are kind of stuck. So it can be a pattern that's shaped by years of cultural silence, cultural expectations, or be good, not angry, pretty girls don't get mad, pretty girls don't cry, be a girl, don't be loud, don't be angry. And I find people, because I've been coaching in the business world for 20 years now, and I find there's a lot of women nearing the end of their career that have stuffed it down and not stood up for themselves and didn't fight to have the career that they wanted, because they just didn't feel like they could. And this is a tough time. So if you have any of these tendencies, I just wanted to talk about how to recognize the pattern and just do a really quick little bit about this particular type of anger that women and men can tend to have. So behaviors and symptoms to look for, because anger isn't expressed outward, great. When I have an episode where I've gone and revisited my family, and I have long-standing, we'll call it generational trauma, but I have issues from my childhood I haven't been able to deal with because I'm only in brief moments with the people who caused the anger. And I'm in some instances, people have passed away, and I haven't been able to address my anger, so that anger is still lingering. And I'll find myself I feel like I'm a pretty reasonable person, but I'm normal, I'm human, I am not perfect. I'm always trying to work on this, but I'll find I bump up against somebody who is really hurtful to me and has been my whole life, and I only see them once every couple of years, and then I see them and I revert back to behaviors, even though I like to think that I'm healthier than that. I revert back to that person, and I find that all this anger I had towards this person, this situation, or this past event doesn't show up until I'm there again. And somehow I lost all the tools to deal with it. So I find that I'm having to revisit my stewer patterns when I'm angry. And things to look for is when you say things like, I'm fine, when you're not. That is a way to not talk about things that are bothering you, or to shove down and stew on that anger some more. And if you constant self-blame, or you're constantly just thinking about what's bothering you and you're not sharing it, you're not journaling it, you're not talking to a therapist, that is stewing in your anger. And physical symptoms, absolutely. Insomnia, digestive issues, which is a huge one, tension, headaches, I talked to my friend who's a therapist and deals with anxiety disorders. And, sometimes people will look for years for solutions to their gut problem, or their hip will be out, or their shoulders ache and they can't crack their back. And come to find out, it's the stress of frequently carrying old hurt and old pain with you and never processing it. So if you've been looking for cures to some of your physical ailments, this might be a psychological issue as well. So undigging and unburying some of this stress and anger could really help you. So some of the emotional signs is depression. I absolutely was stewing in anger and dealing with depression and covering it up by drinking too much. And then if you feel stuck, you know that, hey, somebody talked about going and doing a thing, but you can't. You feel stuck. Somebody says, well, why don't you just get another job? But you need to have the money that you have, and you've got people relying on you, and you hate your job, and you feel stuck. And that's stewing in it. A lot of people with a quiet quitting, that's kind of stewing in it. And I am not blaming people for doing it. This is not a judgment or a blame show. I'm just saying that if you're sitting there and you're feeling depressed, you've got stomach problems, hypertension, headaches, you say you're fine when you're not, you're blaming yourself for not doing something about something, you may be in a stewing pattern. So, when was the last time I swallowed my anger instead of speaking up about it? I always tell people, get a piece of paper out while you're listening to me, because I want to try and give you exercises to work through what that stewing pattern is. So 5 steps to work on inner anger, and especially all anger, but if you're stewing, name it. That's really important, because I think when I was really stuck my longest, I felt like everything was wrong. And I just was always feeling out of sorts. My intuition was screaming at me that I needed to do something different. But I was drinking and I was just going about doing the same thing. And I didn't name what I was mad about. And it took me a long time to pull it apart, pull the threads out until I could see what was bothering me. One way to start that is, start writing down, I feel angry because. Maybe even do this every day. Maybe carry a note around in your phone and have it be your angry note, which sounds terrible, but maybe it's your angry research note. Let's call it that. I feel angry because, and have that at the top, ... And then below that, stub my toe, cut my purse on the door. My husband doesn't love me. Oh, whoops, where'd that come from? So start naming what's upsetting you. And then listen to your body. There's a book called Body Keeps the Score. There's pros and cons about that. And I'm not here to discuss whether that book works or not. But when I listen to my body and I notice tension in my shoulders and I'm trying to release it and I can't, that's going to be some anger. And pain, when I'm feeling pain in my stomach, or if I'm really tired, if I'm not sleeping and I'm waking up in the middle of the night worried about things, these are all, for me, my anger signals. And so I have to say, what am I angry about? And for me, I'm probably being restricted with freedom. I really need freedom in my life. It's a big part of my value system. And if I don't feel like I can move from a situation that is bothering me, I lose sleep. And that's a big, big message to me. So if that's happening, then I need to find solutions to what's happening to me. I need to move from where I am. But I've learned that about myself. So notice, is my body tense? What's happening? What are the signals? And then create a safe release from that anger. Journaling, I cannot tell you enough. I have a lot of people that I'll start to work with in business, and then all of a sudden we dig apart that they are drinking too much. They fight with their spouse constantly. They are in debt where they don't own their house. There's no equity in their home. They have credit cards maxed out, and they are depressed to the point of suicide. And this has happened to me within the last year. I've gotten a client like that, and they came to me for business help. Well, we immediately started looking at their insurance and trying to find them a psychologist, a psychiatrist that they could talk to, somebody in their network, because they didn't have money. And at that time, I said, here's some things: breathing techniques, physical movement, get out in nature, start yoga, find free classes in the park. But journaling, this is my own personal experience. I have been flat broke with nothing to eat before in my life. And when that happened, well, I wasn't going to be able to hire a therapist, but I got a journal. And a journal is the best way for you to see your patterns. I call it self-therapy in a book because if you start writing down today what you're feeling and start with, I feel angry because, I feel lost because, I feel hurt because, I feel sick to my stomach, my foot hurts. Start keeping track of symptoms and reasons and just write all the bad stuff down. I guarantee you in a week, if you, even just 1 week, you come back and reread that journal, you're going to see your patterns very clearly. And if you're working to address this, and if you're really lonely, you go make a friend or something like that, you're going to be able to see as you get healthier, you'll go back and reflect on how far down that little buried pit of anger you were. And journaling is a form of self-therapy. Will it ever replace a therapist? No. Will it ever replace a psychologist or CBT training? No. But if it's all you've got today, if it's all you're capable of today, it is a safe place to release that anger into. If you're not in a safe place, I've been in a domestic violence situation before. Maybe use your phone or an email, try to get an account where you can journal. If you are in that situation, I hope that you're able to get out of it as soon as possible and find some help. I know how hard that is. Practice small expressions. Start saying no or share out loud small frustrations safely. So if you go to a PTA meeting, I'm pulling this out of the blue, and you are always getting told that you're going to be the secretary, you're going to be the treasurer, or you're getting volunteered for committees that you don't have the time to do. And that's an example. Say no, because you go home and you're frustrated because once again, you've got another thing that you've got to do and you don't have any time for yourself. Put yourself first and say no. It's okay to do that. And then when somebody recommends and volunteers you on your behalf because you've never said no before, stop them and say, no, I cannot do that. When they say, sure, you always do. Say, well, I have to take time back for myself right now. I can't take it on. And try to practice small expressions of telling your frustrations out loud. And then reframe your anger as a signal. I talked about this in the larger podcast episode. What is my anger protecting or pointing me toward? And that means, why is this pain or this anger or this tension, why is this happening to me? What is causing it? And then using that signal to start working on the things that you need to work on. And then we need to have support systems for that person who is stewing on issues. That's a really big deal. If you really think you're a stewer and you feel really stuck and you don't have an opportunity to get therapy, to use the journaling and stuff, and you feel like this is a massive problem, I will tell you, I was in a very stuck situation. I hired a therapist, and it was like a crowbar and pulled me out of that situation. And if it wasn't for that therapy that empowered me, I wouldn't be where I am today and happily pursuing myself and able to recognize the intuition that tells me I'm stuck and I'm building anger towards a situation. I'm not good. I still get angry. I still get frustrated. I still bark. I swear at drivers. I do. But I'm telling you what, I'm closer to it because I did get that therapy. Another form of it, if you don't feel you are so bad off that you need therapy, is coaching. There's life coaching. There's business coaching. I have a whole episode on how to find a good coach that could also apply to finding a good therapist. Because your therapist should not be your friend. Your coach is not your friend. They should be helping you move forward. Absolutely. If they are not, you need to get another one. Find support groups, especially for midlife women who are navigating transitions. We have so many transitions at this stage in our life. Find other groups of women who are going through menopause. If you recently lost a partner, Find support groups for people who lost a partner. If you're grieving, there's grief support groups. If you're trying to quit drinking, there's NA groups. Doesn't have to be AA. You don't have to call yourself an addict. You can go and there's tons of support out there. Go to a trusted friend or even your partner. If you're just realizing now that you're stewing on a problem that you happened with a friend group and you're really close with your partner, talk to them about it. Or I have a really close friend that when I'm having a problem, she really listens to me, and that helps. She doesn't have judgment. Don't go to somebody who might judge you, because that is not going to help you get out of a stewing situation. So support helps break silence, and it validates your feelings. It's really important that you get a support system. And then, we want to take steps towards creating hope for you. Simply by listening to this episode and thinking about the right that you have to be angry about things is a step towards hope. And I really want to build hope and faith in my listeners, because I have so much hope and faith for myself. It's my life force, I swear. So recognize progress and small wins. If you stood up for yourself and created a boundary and said no to something, journal about it, If you're journaling and you weren't journaling before, feel good about that. That is a huge win. Focus on self-compassion instead of blame. You are not to blame for feeling angry. You are not to blame for accepting more than you should, for not loving yourself. You are not the person to blame. You don't deserve that. Have self-compassion. This is all you know, and you're trying to break free from it now. Hug the little girl that's inside of you. Hug yourself. Wrap your arms around your body and give a big squeeze. Sometimes that's the only hug we get, but it's enough. Trust me, you're enough. You're worthy of it. So don't carry this around and think that you're not worth getting rid of some of this anger. You are worth being angry about stuff. And remember, anger isn't a weakness. It's wisdom waiting to be voiced. You know that this thing is happening and shouldn't be happening. You're wise enough to understand that you need to do something about it. And it's not a weakness to be angry about something. You have every right to be angry about stuff. It's what you do with it that it makes all the difference. So the anger you've been carrying isn't there to destroy you. Keep that in mind. So when you feel like you're drowning in it and you're immersed in it, that anger was never meant to destroy you. It's here to guide you towards change. It always has wanted to guide you towards change. You just didn't know that. So what we want to think about are some resources that you can use to help you when you're processing anger. Journaling. Go back to that. Get some prompts. Here's some prompts. You could pause this, get your journal. What am I holding on to that I need to release? Where in my body am I angry? When do I feel anger the most? And prepare yourself for those situations. What am I the angriest about? When's the last time I was angry? What caused it? What did I do about it? All these things are really important for you to handle. There's also going to be a book down in the show notes. If you go inside the episode that you're listening to, this little brief episode, The Dance of Anger by Harriet Lerner is a great book. And you might want to practice mind-body things, because there's a psychosomatic experience where I'm really angry and it's coming out in my foot. I have a pain in my foot or my knee or my back or my shoulders. My stomach is always upset because I've got all this anger inside of me. And Headspace, I love Balance, the Balance app for meditation. Meditation, there's tons of classes for it on YouTube, free. Go to yoga. There's free yoga online. And just remember, if you're a stewer, you're not alone, and there are safe ways to let that inner anger out before it burns you up from inside. I want you to reflect on one area where you can express your anger. I've had people in coaching who we discussed a lot of their business, and all of a sudden pops up that they're very angry about things. Get a pillow, scream into your pillow, punch your pillow, go take boxing classes, go for a run, go out into the middle of the woods and scream. Go to an axe throwing place. Go to one of those places where you bang stuff and break it. There's a lot of ways to start getting it out physically, so it's not sitting in you emotionally. And I invite you to send me a message. Let me know if you're struggling with anything. Let me know if you had something that worked, because I'm going to do a recap session this season. And I really hope that if you're a stewer that you're able to move through it. I've been really working on it, and it's amazing how much joy I have in my life now that I can let go of anger a lot better. I hope this helps. Take care. Thank you for joining me on Throw Off the Lines. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe for future episodes and extras, and leave a review, share it with someone who needs a total inspiration. You can also find us on Facebook or Instagram and our Throw Off the Lines website. If you want to be a guest or have questions for the host, sign up on the website and we'll get back to you. Until next time, throw off those lines and live your best life.